today's session of Visual JForex, we will be continuing our work using the indicator named Stochastic. This is going to be the second part, and in today's session, the focus is going to be on completing the buy side of the equation. We will see how we can design and develop the algorithm using this indicator to execute the buy trade, and in the subsequent session, we will also be taking a look for the sell side. But for this session, we will be limiting ourselves to the buy side. So let us get started. I will give you a brief refresher on what the logic is going to be while looking for the buy trade. We want the buy trade to be executed whenever we have this stochastic in bullish momentum. By bullish momentum, I mean it's a slow K and slow D value should be on rise, and also this crossover, the slow K should be above the slow D, and one thing which we are going to do in addition of this is that we are going to define the output band. We want this slow K value to be above 20, and only when this slow K and slow D values are on the rise and still below this overbought scenario, we want only in this output band the buy trades should happen. So on the higher side, we will be using the slow D value, and slow percent D value should be below 80. So this is going to be the output band within which the trade should be executed. And once we are confident of the 4 hourly condition, we will shift our focus on the lower time frame of 15 minutes. And here, as and when we see the crossover taking place, while being on the lower side of the equation, we want the slow K and slow D values to be below 50, and as and when the crossover happens, whenever slow K value crosses above slow D value, we will be looking to initiate the buy trade. So that's how this trade system is going to work, and quite simple. All we have to do is consider these stochastic output values, compare themselves amongst these two outputs, and then define the output band within which this value should be. That's how this is going to be. And now we head back to the Visual JForex board, which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA. Here, in the prior session, I had carried out the instrument subscription, then the position amount was defined at 0. These stochastic blocks of 4 hour and 15 minutes were brought in. After that, to look at the price action data, we are also relying on the get historical candle of the candle period 4 hours and 15 minutes each. These two are of 10 seconds, and then this calculation was carried out to define the certain pip size, pip value, and I think this is 25. So we have defined this 25 pips for the Euro USD, and whenever we will be looking at the price action, we will need the last 4 hour candle high and candle low to be more than 25 pips apart. So at that point in time, this calculation output value will come handy. And here, to carry out the calculation, we will also need the one more stochastic block of 4 hours. Here this is having a shift value of 1, but as we need the stochastic values on the rise, we will need to compare the last 4 hours stochastic values with the penultimate block's value. So for that, we will need the stochastic block with the similar parameters, just its shift value will be different and it will be 2. So that is going to be the only difference. So I will bring in one more stochastic block. Here this MA type needs to be defined. It is going to be SMA, simple moving average. This will be changed to 4 hours. Value of 2. Okay, all other parameters remain the same. Now we will have to look at the actual high-low difference. For that, the calculation expression block will be needed. We need to consider candle 18's high and low. Its high should be greater than its low by more than 25 pips. So for that we will have to look at the actual difference and then compare it with the predefined value A1 minus A2. Okay, after this we can bring in the multiple action block. Here I will join it. If need arises to add blocks later on, we can always disconnect it. For the time being, I have joined multiple action. Okay, now we will start adding the conditions for the trade execution using these blocks. We are going to need the slow K and slow D values to be on the rise, and also there should be crossover in place. Slow K value will need to be slow D above slow D value. So here first thing we'll do is define the first input greater than second input, and this should be greater than prior 4 hourly candles output for the stochastic. So we'll need again first input greater than second input. Similar thing here also. First input greater than second input. Then we need the stochastic output to start rising above 20. So here the slow K should be above 20. And on the higher side, we are also putting a limit, and we will need the last 4 hours output for stochastic slow D should be below 80. All right. So these are for the 4 hourly time period. Now this should be less than first input, less than second input. After that, we will be looking for the crossover. in a 15-minute time frame. So here we will need the last 15-minute candles output for stochastic should be showing the slow K value above the slow D value, whereas for the penultimate candle of 15 minutes, the slow K value should have been below the slow D value. That means in last 15 minutes, this crossover has taken place, and we want this last 15-minute candles output for stochastic to be below 50. So that is going to be additional requirement. This one slow K17 should have been less than slow D, and slow K16 will need to be greater than slow D16. First input greater than second input. And slow 16, slow K16, and slow D16 should have been below 50. First input less than second input. Then we will need to look at the price action, and here we have already carried out this calculation. We need to compare these two output, and the high low difference should be more than predefined value of 25 pips. First input greater than second input. Last 15-minute candle's closing should be higher than its opening value. So we will need to compare candle 19 closing value with its opening value. First input greater than second input, and then as and when the price starts to rise above the last 15-minute candle close, we will be looking to execute the trade. So we will need to compare these candle 20 and candle 19's close, and candle 21's closing should have been below candle 19's close. So here two if blocks will be needed, and candle 19's close is going to be the common parameter. This should be first input greater than second input. and in this case the first input less than second input. After this we can bring in the execution block. Open at market, we will be going for the market open, whatever is the market price, the execution will happen at that price then and there. First input less than second input. Okay, so before these input parameters are defined, we will simply arrange these blocks to make it easier to understand the flow for the algorithm. Okay, so we have used 13 if blocks to define these conditions. Now it's time to define the parameters of the trade. It is going to be the buy order. Default instrument is of course going to be Euro USD. Trade amount should be kept as per the equity of your account. I will be keeping it as 0.1 million. Slippage 2 pips is good enough. And since our order execution is going to be dependent on the 15-minute time horizon, though we are also mindful of the larger time frame trend, I think a combination of stop loss of 10 pips and 20 pips should be good enough. So this time around also we are not really keeping the stop loss target price dynamic. Rather, we will be using a fixed combination of 10 pips and 20 pips. I am hopeful it should hold well. And you should of course carry out the testing of the historical data whether it holds good or not, and if need arises we can always make it dynamic instead of static. So this is where it belongs. I will color code this just to make sure that the algorithm iteration flow is working uninterrupted. Okay, this looks good. So that's it from my side for today's session. If any of you have any query or any idea to share, you can write to me in the feedback section and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. Thank you all for joining in. See you next time. Till then, goodbye.